Good evening. My name is Peter Tarsi, and this is another installment of Legislative Update with Representative Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great, Peter. Nice to see you.
It's been a while since we did the last show.
Yeah, we've had the Super Bowl victory and the parade, and so we.
And you've been a busy man.
And I have been. I have been. I don't think that ever stops, to be honest with you. I always think that once I get through with this issue, then I can have not downtime, but a little slower pace. But there's always something going on.
I heard you visited Revere City Hall today.
I
and
did.
you
I just
accepted
came from
something.
there. Yes, it was wonderful. The Revere City Council honored me with a commendation for my service as a state representative, in particular as being the longest serving Speaker of the House in the history of the Massachusetts. But most importantly, they felt that I was doing, or am doing, a good job as a state representative in the district, and they appreciated the time and effort and that I put into the job and trying to help people. It was very, very nice.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
2019-2020 session, legislative session is in progress now. What is upcoming?
Right now, believe it or not, we're getting ready for the budget for the FY.
Oh, that's right, 2020.
FY20, yeah. Believe it or not, the governor has released his budget already, which he did in January. And by mid-April, we'll be releasing our budget. So we're only, believe it or not, about 6 weeks away from really releasing our budget. So that's when I said you stop one subject and go right into another. And, so that's what's going on starting on March 4th. They'll start the hearings throughout the state relative to all the line items in the budget, and so that process going on right now.
In the 2019 budget, what are the positives or the issues that you feel could have been better?
I think that we had a lot of great things to talk about in our budget that that we accomplished, whether it was local aid, whether it was education funding, the fight against opioid abuse, early education, some of the stuff that we did there, criminal justice reform. So there were many things that we had to be proud of. I think that right now, despite all that, I think there were certain things that we had hoped to get accomplished, came down to the goal line but couldn't quite get there. That will become probably the major subjects as we go into the next budget cycle. For example, health care reform, costs of health care reform, education foundation budget. In particular, the folks here, whether you're from Revere or Winthrop, they're looking for some changes there as well. Transportation, how much money we're going to be putting into transportation to improve upon the present system that we have. So I still think we've got some major issues that we have to address this session, this coming session.
Now, you happen to mention opioids. When you classify opioids, you also have to classify marijuana. And the reason I say that is, if I am pulled over by an officer for whatever the violation is, how can they test for marijuana?
They can't.
Or opioids? How can they then say, well, you're under the influence if you're not, if you've passed an alcoholic or an alcohol test? How can they say you're under the influence?
The problem, that's one of the major problems with marijuana in particular. And I think that, and that's one of the major concerns that the law enforcement people have expressed to me, was the fact that, with the breathalyzer, you can very quickly tell whether a person is under the influence of alcohol while they are driving. Right now, there is no such test. I know that, relative to marijuana. So It's something that they're working on. That does not stop them from doing the other tests, whether it's, you know, walking or touching your nose or, you know, whatever
The field tests.
The field test, I'm
Right.
sorry, right. So, but they don't have the test, like the breathalyzer that they do. So, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what happens with that. I know a lot of folks, and rightfully so, are concerned about that.
The only reason I bring that up is, you know, marijuana is legal. Now, what prevents...
Well, alcohol is legal too.
Right,
It's
I
just
understand.
a question
but
of
it's the tests are there for alcohol, but not for marijuana, for
Right.
example.
right.
What prevents me from going to this location to buy marijuana, to that location, to another location on the same day? Is there some guidelines? Is there some, how can we say it, computer?
No,
System?
similar to what you did if you had cases of alcohol in your home. That's fine. You can have, you know, whatever it is that you have, but you can't obviously ingest it to the point where you can't function, especially with a motor vehicle. So it's the same type of issues that we face with alcohol. The only difference, again, being that we don't have the testing procedures that we have, or the machinery that we have relative to alcohol.
But again, it goes right back to the same thing I just asked. I can go to location 1 to buy marijuana, location 2, location 3, location 4, and get the legal amount from every one of those. And then all of a sudden, I have more than the legal amount.
That's an amount. Does it?
But I can use that today, and I can do it again tomorrow.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? The
Right.
quantity, is there some
Yeah.
prevention in the system?
I don't
from
think
that
there's any
happening?
system in terms of whether it's computer to say, gee, you've got marijuana here or there, or I don't think there's anything
That's
like
something that should be in effect,
Yeah.
because one can go and then resell it to someone who can't get it.
Well,
You see what I'm
can't-
saying?
You can't sell it. That's another issue.
I understand, but you can get it
Right.
legally.
Right. Right. I
Selling
hear
it illegally is another story.
Right.
All right. But let's just drop that for a moment. The governor, because of what's happening in other states, New Jersey, and I believe Rhode Island now, there's sports betting. The governor wants sports betting in this city. I'm sorry, this state.
State. Right.
And right now there's 2 casinos, one online, the betting parlor, or the slots parlor, whether they'll have it or not, I don't know, and also Everett.
Right. Well, Everett's not.
It's coming in June or July.
Right. June, supposedly.
Right. So do you think by then sports betting will be...
That's a great question, and I feel, I spoke to the new chair, actually, of economic development. It's the representative from Gloucester by the name of Ann Margaret Ferrante, and we were talking about that, and she wants to come in and she wants to talk to me, and she's a newly appointed chair of economic development and trying to learn and whatnot. And my first question or concern that I've raised before was I just want to make sure, obviously, first of all, that you have the integrity of the game is protected. And I've told this to everybody who's come in to see me. I've even told the folks who came in to see me from Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, you know, that I want to make sure that that is protected, because there was a hue and cry when they opened up very quickly in New Jersey, as you stated, and Rhode Island more recently. And I said that I'd rather, again, take my time and make sure that we do it the right way. And how are you going to do it? There are some people that say you just do it at casinos. There are some people who say, well, just do it online, like with the DraftKings and folks like that. There are some people who say, let's have it on betting parlors. I've even had some people who say, let's do it where people go with Keno and whatnot to local grocery stores, convenience stores. So there are so many different issues out there that I think we have to look at. And when we talked about bringing expanded gaming into the Commonwealth, I was one who stated that's fine. I was in support of that, but on the other hand, I just wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. So it may take a little bit longer, but I don't think that's anything that you can rush into to make sure, again, that you do it to do it the best way possible.
You want the
Because
guidelines in there,
obviously
yeah.
it appears as though, and I know a lot of folks out there are saying that you know, it could be very, very lucrative, obviously for each state, with the Supreme Court decision allowing it. But I think you also have to have proper protections relative problem gamblers that we had relative to the casinos, so that we put it in. So I think these are all factors that we have to try to mesh, have hearings, and see what the best method is.
Well, the only reason I say that is, let's face it, I think it's not next year, but the year after, 2021, that Las Vegas is going to have a football team.
Well, they have a hockey team.
They have a hockey team now, and they could be having a football
Oh,
team.
they looking
too.
to get football?
I
wasn't
think
sure
so,
if
because
there
Oakland
there
may
was
be
some.
the one, the Raiders.
I knew they were looking to get. I wasn't sure if it was basketball or football. Okay.
It's football. I believe it was
Okay,
football.
you
but,
might be
But
right.
again, then you have other factors.
Yeah, they had an amazing first year in hockey, by the way.
I know.
They made right to the finals, but
But again, that's another issue altogether. You spoke of transportation. Anyone who lives in Revere or Winthrop and goes into Boston, they hit the mouth of the summer tunnel, and they could be there for an hour because congestion is so bad. Now, I don't know if it's because of the other side and exiting from the tunnel, or just going in, it's so congested. How can you relieve that?
we have a great issue with that. I will tell you that it's not only there. As I travel around the state, if I'm going out to the South Coast, or if I'm going out to the western part of the state, if I don't get out of my office before 3 o'clock, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. I've been going to events where I left after 3 o'clock, we'll say for 5:30 or 6 o'clock event, and I've had to call sometimes and say, I'm only as far as Framingham, sorry. I'm never going to make it.
I know exactly what you're saying because I had to go to the
I'm seeing you with your
DCU Center, or DCU.
in Worcester.
And I left, no exaggerating, somewhere between 3 and 3:30.
Yeah.
And I got to the event, and it was like a 7:30, 8 o'clock event, maybe a half hour before it started.
That's unbelievable.
Which yesterday, I went to see my son in Hamden. And from Worcester to Boston, or from Boston to Worcester, only took me less than an hour. It's amazing how that traffic just jams.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And it was interesting because I was just talking to some of the reps today just about that very, subject in terms of, the causes of it and whatnot. And, is it the fact of some people say, well, it's the Uber and the Lyft that's causing the problem. Some people say, well, some of the work that's being done on the highways and the bridges and whatnot. But right now, it's something that we are looking into very thoroughly because we have to. I mean, obviously, in terms of the timing and the economics of it, but also the pollution of it as well is something that concerns us.
Now, mass transportation, it is great. Don't misunderstand me. If I was to go to Fenway Park, I would never take my car to Fenway Park.
I don't either.
It's ridiculous. But again, it doesn't solve the problem of transportation. Public transportation, it's there, but it may not be adequate today. Multiply that as to the amount of travelers there will be in 5 or 10 years. It's going to be so archaic by then.
Well, I think that I think what I hear consistently from folks, and folks, tell me they don't mind in terms of, sometimes what they may have to pay in terms of whether it's fare increases or whatever costs, but they want something reliable. And I think for the most part, it's been pretty good. A couple of winters ago that's when I think we learned our lesson, especially in the winter, obviously. But I think that you're right, and I think that that's what we're planning on right now, is we're planning on taking a look at our transportation system, not only now, but what is it going to look like so many years hence, to make sure that we're ready to go. I know the governor is committed to something like in the next 5 years, putting $8 billion into infrastructure and improvements into the system.
I think we spoke of this issue maybe in our last show or the one previous, and it has to do with firefighters' sick benefits. I think you were trying to, or there was a bill in the works that would help firefighters that are hurt on the job or
Fighting cancer or whatnot.
right
Like,
due to,
unfortunately, we
due to
have so
smoke
many.
inhalation and so forth.
Right.
Has anything happened on that?
It passed.
It passed?
It passed, and the firefighters union, and I guess all firefighters, I guess in general, even the leadership, non-union, I think were greatly appreciated. Not only did we do that, obviously, what happened was that they were losing time. For instance, if they had to get treated, relative to cancer, and as you know or can appreciate now, although our firefighting equipment has improved greatly, obviously over the years, what has happened with many of these new chemicals and whatnot, we have found that some of the cancerous causing issues have seemingly worsened. So not only that, but we made sure that relative to cancer, for instance, breast cancer with some women firefighters, that they were included as well. So that did pass. We had a great bill signing for that, and the firefighters were greatly appreciative that that was their major issue to get passed this year.
Let's toss another thing at you. The Education Foundation funding, what is that?
Education Foundation funding is what the state gives to each city and town relative to education, so-called Chapter 70 funding. Obviously, cities and towns vary greatly.
Depending on the need?
Well, depending upon, if you're Boston, Lawrence, Lynn, I mean, obviously the size has a lot to do with whether there's English language learners, is that part of it. And, that differs greatly. For instance, if you were to go way out west in some of the rural communities, every city and town receives funding, relative to education funding, very similar to, like every city and town receives local aid. But right now, because it's been so many years that we've had the same Education Foundation budgeting process in for so many years, people think that things have changed over a couple of decades now in terms of what we should be looking at to make sure that that system is fair and equitable. Revere and Winthrop are different in terms of demographics.
Oh, yes.
You go into, for instance, in Revere, I think they have something like over 30 languages, for instance, that are spoken.
Correct.
And there. Winthrop, on the other hand, is right in the middle in terms of where they are in terms of financing. They may not be extensive in terms of immigration issues or whatnot like Revere, but on the same token, they're not a Wellesley or Weston either. So they're in they're in a difficult spot as well. So right now we're taking a look at that whole Education Foundation and budgeting and hopefully this year. This is one of the issues we thought we were very, very close to resolving last year, but now we're going to start on it immediately this year.
I know when they had the boom in school building programs, the percentage that I'll say the state gave to the individual city, both Revere or Winthrop, I know Revere percentage-wise got more because of the mixed cultures.
Yes.
And
Winthrop did, well.
Winthrop
yeah,
got a good portion. Don't misunderstand me,
Right.
percentage-wise.
Right.
But there are so many more diversities in Revere compared to Winthrop.
Right.
So that's why the percentage was higher
Right.
there than Winthrop.
Yes, and the interesting is what we did was a couple, we put in a penny on each the sales tax that goes to the school building authority, and they in turn will take a look at, the communities. Now in Winthrop we were very fortunate. Now what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 3 schools, but there are two, the middle school and the high school, are all one building. So whether you count that one, which is a beautiful building.
And you have the same thing in Revere. You have two schools into one.
Right. Well, Revere now is looking into the possibility of doing that. They've got their high school is not connected to a middle
No,
school.
but I'm just saying they have another school right on Sargent Street, I believe it is, that has two schools into
Oh, yes,
one.
right. That's right.
So it's the same situation.
Same situations, but they've just been approved to be taken a look at for their high school.
That's
so
good.
So they're very enthusiastic about that. Because the other thing you have to realize as you're in this learning environment that we're in, we were talking even before we started about the technology and labs and all that other good stuff that I never did too well in school with.
I didn't know what a computer was in school.
Yeah, right. But now it's it is what it is. And if you're going to create a learning environment for these students to succeed, then the new buildings with the new technology has to be part of it.
There's one thing that when we were discussing what we should talk about tonight, the JetBlue news, I have no idea what that is.
Well, one of the things that they were talking about was the fact that they are retrofitting their planes to make them quieter.
Okay.
And I have to admit, this is something that we've been talking about, I want to say, since we've actually since I actually was a member of the Board of Selectmen. And one of the things that had always concerned me was the fact that, not only do people talk about the air pollution that occurs, with traffic or with the airports and whatnot, but also the air pollution, and noise pollution, I should say, as well. And one of the things they're talking about now with JetBlue is to retrofit the airplanes to make the Airbuses, I guess, to make them quieter. And what I'm hoping is that we can see that type of that other airlines will catch on. Now, for years, as you can tell, since I was a selectman, they've been talking about the cost would be prohibitive and whatnot. But now it appears as though air travel, not only here in Massachusetts, but all around the country, seems to be doing very, very well. So I'm hoping, and we're trying to put as much pressure, we'll say, on the folks in Washington to try to get it done. Whether that will happen with this administration, I'm not so sure.
Well, unless it has to do with the building of the wall, who knows what's going to happen. We started earlier that you had mentioned the Super Bowl.
Yes.
One pet item that you have, and you've been doing this for years, is spring training. Are you going there shortly?
I'm planning on going. I'm still in the process of working it out. As you know or may not know, I don't really take a whole lot of vacations. If I take 4 days at a time, that's a lot of time for me. The world or the State House wouldn't exist without me, but that's just the way I am. But I'm trying to get down there in March. I have to say I try to get down there for a long weekend, and I am planning on hopefully doing it again. I just am a huge baseball fan. The atmosphere down there is great. Not only have I been to the Red Sox part, I've been to the Minnesota Twins park, which is only about 5 or 10 minutes
well, they have
away.
A challenge, shall we say, for a certain
They do.
trophy.
That's right.
Yeah.
They call
I forget what it's called.
County trophy, whatever the county is. But I've been known even to get up in the morning, go down to the practice fields, and sometimes we'll walk around and talk to the players and whatnot. I just love the sport. Always loved the sport, and I just love the atmosphere down there. It's just wonderful. It's a beautiful facility.
It's JetBlue Park.
That's right. Speaking of JetBlue Park, and both facilities are beautiful. I don't know, they hold 5, 6, maybe more thousands of people.
Do they recognize you when you're down there? The Red Sox management, shall we say?
I have to say that a couple of years ago, I think Larry Lucchino was the president at that time. He did. and wanted me to come in to talk to some of the folks, and I went there. And it was a great visit. They took me around the park. They showed me the workout facilities and what they had there. But I went to watch the game, and unfortunately I ended up talking to some of the owners about Massachusetts issues. But yeah, and once in a while I'll see some folks. But yes, it is. But I go out like everyone else. I get my tickets myself, go online like everybody else, and
enjoy yourself.
Enjoy it. And actually, last year they played the Chicago Cubs there for a couple of games. And who did I see there but Theo Epstein, who's now the general manager of the Cubs.
I think he's vice president too.
Yeah, whatever he is. So although I wanted to see the Red Sox win, Theo Epstein asked me to, come in and
talk to the Cubs
and to talk to some of the folks who were there.
Good. Bob, I'm going to toss this at you. This is something that is just off the cuff, which I kind of hit every so often to you. Amazon is leaving New York. Well, when I say leaving, they never really got in, but they said it was nixed in New York. Is there a possibility Massachusetts could get them now?
I think there is a possibility. It's their offices. It's not so much the factory, the major employment that we were looking for.
Well, that's down in the
Virginia,
Washington, D.C., Virginia
area, right. But I think that I think Boston will now, could be considered. Let me say this about Amazon, and I pushed, hoping that Suffolk Downs would be the site. I looked at the thousands and thousands of jobs that could be provided. But on the other hand, I have to say, in that Revere East Boston area, meeting with the gentleman who's proposing what's going to go there, so far, between housing and retail and the like, I think it could be nice. I think something similar to what goes on. It was at Assembly Square in Somerville, probably something similar to that.
Well, I think it's...
So I think it's going to be, even though we may not have been successful in getting the Amazon, I must admit that I am excited about, the proposals that they have there. And it appears as though the governments in both Revere and Boston are excited as well. Because one of the issues I also think we have to look at is housing. I didn't mention that as one of the issues. Affordable housing, as you can appreciate or have seen. The cost of housing, especially in Boston, has risen, dramatically. And well, I shouldn't say just Boston. It's happening.
It's everywhere.
In a lot of places. So I'm hoping the affordable housing will also be.
But then you also have the situation we were talking about, transportation.
Right.
That's another key issue.
Right, and that's one of the things. These places, a lot of these places are going up with the idea of transportation. If you take a look again at Somerville, if you take a look at Medford, they're having these units, whether they're condos or apartment units, going up near transportation facility. Because what you find is, some people just don't want to use the car, and they want the convenience of having public transportation that they can use.
Bob, we have, give or take, about a minute and a half. Why don't we start the ending right now and explain to the audience how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. As always, as I told some of the folks I were with accommodation in Revere this evening, one of the things I pride myself on is the fact of constituent services. Even as Speaker of the House, I can still consider that to be one of the most important things that I do as a state representative. So if they need to contact me, they can contact me at 617-722-2500. That's 617-722-2500. And if it's not me, it's a member of my staff who will try to be of assistance in whatever the issue may be.
And again, we thank you for viewing, and hopefully the next show will be a little sooner than it has in the past.
It'll be after the budget, I'll tell you that.
Again, thank you for viewing, and good night.